You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We are 2-3-0s in a... My name is Pojo. I'm here with Sir Rhino.
Yeah, we've forgotten how to do introductions and, run tournaments, but that's okay. They run themselves at this point, I think, is how it works. But yeah, we're returning here for this lovely tournament series. We're halfway through the Swiss, 3 rounds down. And I believe you were saying we're about to see a pair of 3-0 competitors go up against each other.
I blame Ace's rap. It's totally thrown off my rhythm. Yeah, we got VSarius versus Unearthly here. Felm Spymaster versus Rhino Plate. This Felm Spymaster deck is a sort of a new mid-range archetype, I believe. It's been sort of making the rounds. And of course, Unearthly's Rhino Plate, always a reliable expectation in the tournament, something that can often typically take quite a few.
Yeah, this Felm Spymaster deck is just a new take on, I suppose, Felm mid-range. Traditionally, Felm mid-range was more focused around Champion of Cunning being its big finisher, but that necessitated that you had to play Felm Stranger, which isn't a card you always really want to play in Constructed. So this one opts for some different ways to finish the game. It's got Cabal Spymaster as part of its namesake. In that way, your 5-drop choice is actually Westwind Herald, and then you've got a lot of powerful spells built around that. You can do Crystallize Westwind Herald, Cabal Spymaster to effectively lock your opponent out of the game. Or Mirror Image in Westwind Herald obviously is a great thing. You also get to play Beast Colors Amulet on your lower drops and trigger that multiple times because of Cabal Spymaster. So there's just a mid-range deck with a lot of good cards, but also has some unfair angles that can.
Yeah, it's an example of how you can build a deck around an idea but not get too greedy with it. Cabal Spymaster is a decent enough drop on its own just as a 4/4 for 4. So if you're only exposing like a couple of different infiltrate effects like Scouting Party Herald and Beast Colors Amulet, that's enough to actually make Spymaster a really serious threat. I think that overall this deck has a pretty interesting matchup against the Rhino deck, and we're going to be pretty excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, so VSarius is up against Unearthly, and nobody could have seen him coming with another Rhino Plate list, and yet here he is, proving everybody wrong. This one's featuring 4 Oath books, and we're going to see how it plays out, because it looks like this match is getting started.
Yeah, we have Unearthly with a hand with a Ronin and a Champion. He chooses to keep this. It's a pretty simple 1-2-3 punch. From what he gets after he plays those units is going to be sort of the determining factor in how this aggro progresses.
Meanwhile, VSarius has a hand that needs a lot of things. Diplo Seal definitely helps, though. Gets him a primal source. Imagine he's going to shoot off this Suffocate. Now he needs to find a unit, have it survive, and then once it does, you can start doing amulets and mirror images and stuff with it. But in the meantime, VSarius just has a lot of complementary tools and nothing to actually go the distance with.
His hand's pretty weak for him. He does get to Feeding Time the next thing that comes down, which will be the Champion. But after that, he's going to have to deal with the Silverwing Familiar, and he's very short on removal for the moment.
Yep. So using a Varus Favor just to get power isn't ideal, especially against a deck that actually has a lot of good Varus Favor targets, even a way to pop an Aegis on something like the 4 Silverwing Familiars. But he opted to get the guaranteed curve out into Feeding Time.
Yep, it seems like a pretty important setup, but at the same time, VSarius has just nothing in his hand that's going to help against Rhino. The Beast Colors Amulets and the Mirror Images are both pretty ineffective here, and Westwind Herald does
there it is
something to work with.
Yeah, I was going to say, VSarius wants a shot here. He's going to have to draw a Westwind Herald, because that gets him another shot at using at least the spells in his yard. Although Unearthly gets one of his best draws possible in a Valkyrie Enforcer.
Yeah, the Enforcer's pretty bad here. It both blocks the Westwind Herald, which is pretty necessary, and also basically sets it up for torches. There's no torch yet, but there certainly can be soon. And VSarius' only way to sort of push the Westwind Herald through is to put a Beast Colors Amulet on it, which might actually be a good idea if he wants to mirror image a copy.
Yeah, he might have to just mirror image his Herald, put an amulet on it, and get the trade now before that flyer gets any larger. Like, Unearthly's playing things like Plates and Hammer of Mites, so you do have to kind of 2-for-1 yourself here. But if it means that your second Herald is free to get more value, And that's one of the few avenues you have to winning this game.
Yeah, it is like he's definitely made the right play here. He's definitely actually using his cards to deal with some of Unearthly's cards, which is important. Like basically, if you run into a situation where these cards are not like doing anything, like basically he had a dead hand and now he's managed to transition that into a less efficient hand, but a hand that's still removing some of Unearthly's threats.
Right. So Unearthly did have to trade there, not because he was afraid of the 5/5 that was going to spawn. He doesn't really care, but more just that spell that VSarius could have cast from Void was the scarier thing. And
yeah, it's a key draw. And of course, like the main issue here is that Unearthly now has to deal with this Westwind Herald #2, which means that he gets both a feeding time and whatever else he wants to play. Mirror Image might be the choice here, just to get Westwind Herald going.
Yep, Mirror Image, and then try and ride like Mirror Image plus Crystallize or something here. But yep, there's the Vanquish, gets to swing in again for 5 here. But VSarius at 16 health isn't too concerned about that. There's a couple war cards I've added up here, but nothing as long as it doesn't hit, a Midnight Gale's a nice hit as well. As long as it doesn't hit, an Aegis Flyer, I think VSarius will try and race whatever shows up.
Yeah, Unearthly can choose to block with his Silverwing Familiar here just to prevent the 2/2s from multiplying too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, it's just a question of how much damage can Unearthly do.
If you're VSarius, you're really
happy
to
overwhelm
see
this
that jump
airboard.
there.
Yeah.
You are so happy to see that jump block there. The number of like powerful things Unearthly could do now that flyer is gone drops dramatically.
Yep, Crystallize now picks up a 1/2. He can feeding time here to kill the 3/2, or he can Mirror Image and just make more flyers.
I think you just clear the board here. That would be
seems pretty reasonable.
Add 6 health with your opponent's
draw his plate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, plates, oath books, torches. Your opponent's got all those kind of cards, and you're at 6. So I think just kill Rakano's units has always been the mantra, and he's got 2 more turns to kill his opponent. Yep, there's the potentially lethal torch.
Torch is a pretty big deal. That Annihilate in VSarius' hand is also a pretty big deal.
Ooh.
Beast Caller's Amulet setting up a blocker, which is good news for VSarius for sure. I'm not sure Unearthly has a good out here.
The out is torch number. Unearthly has to draw a second torch there. Or I guess there may have been a unit with an... I wasn't sure how many war cries Unearthly had on there, but there may have been a unit with that could have survived with the right amount of war cries. I don't know how big a Silverwing Familiar would have had to been there. But VSarius takes that first game on the backs of the value train that is Westwind Herald.
Yeah, it looks like it's gone pretty well for him. I'm glad to see the deck get a reliable win against the Rakano deck. If you can get that early game win, then that's really helpful for you, since your sideboards are going to be a little bit better against more focused aggro strategies, depending on how good VSarius' sideboard actually is against Rakano. But like in general, you want to win the first match against aggro, because that's the match that aggro is most likely to sort of secure in these sort of slower metas that are fairly common to tournaments.
Yeah, VSarius has some options here. He's got 3 Lightning Storms in the side that could come in. They at least help pop the Aegis on Silverwing Familiar. They can kill Tinker Overseer, Rakano Outlaw, and Oni Ronin. So a lot of nice targets for a Lightning Storm. There's one of Black Sky Harbinger that I probably like more than the 1 party. If you like even swap your 6 drops, maybe that's good. Crystallize, it's probably just better than Crystallize as well. A lot of spots you'd rather just have the body attached to it in the life.
Yeah, Crystallize can be really unfortunate with Champion of Glory. Unearthly taking out his Deep Forge plates, however, which would make Crystallize a little bit better. He's putting in instead Soulfire Drakes, which gives him both flying blockers against the Westwind Herald and a way to push damage that's a little bit more surprising and aggressive.
Right. The idea here being, all right, my opponent's trying to play a reasonable amount of removal, especially when the Westwind Heralds get rolling. They've already got main deck suffocates and annihilates and all that sort of stuff. So it makes sense to cut down on your weapons that require units and just play more units and try and overwhelm them via that.
It looks like he's waffling back and forth on this, though. He's taken the oath books out and putting the plates back in.
Okay.
The Soulfire Drakes have not come back in. He's taken them out again. So we'll see what ends up happening against this Feln mid-range deck. Not sure what the final product's going to look like.
I think he took a look at those 4 Silverwing familiars that were still in his deck, and he's like, okay, I should probably still play some number of Deep Forge plates here. Familiar with a plate is one of my better routes to victory in this match.
Yep, it seems like that's definitely the more effective route for him. And from here we have Tinker Overseers. He's still considering those Soulfire Drakes, or considering making space for them, but he's actually over on cards, so we will see what ends up being put in the sideboard. Borderlands Waykeepers in Winds versus Ricano. Two of those, so a little bit of defense against the early game.
Yeah, opting for Waykeepers instead of Lightning Storms. Not sure if I like that idea. I think I'd rather try and just get rid of their threats that are in play rather than try and stall them. You can only be in the way of a Ricano Outlaw or an Oni Ronin for so long until it is an actual problem that's going to kill you. Waykeeper, once you activate it, can block Silverwing Familiars, but it can't even exchange with Valkyrie Enforcer. So it's really just this speed bump, and Ricano doesn't mind waiting to get its value. Like it's not burn where it's actually racing, as long as it can still attack and not.
Yeah, it can sort of be an issue due to the way that it would soak removal spells, but more likely Unearthly's just going to play a weapon on his units and run right over it. So yeah, it shouldn't be too big of a deal for the Ricano deck.
Yeah, I think I would prefer the proactive rather than passive removal of Waykeeper against a deck that is potentially playing things like Oathbook and stuff. Their units are going to change in size, stay the same.
All right, so for our starter, we have Unearthly with a hand. Again, a pretty nice 1-2-3, but no units this time. He's actually playing Tinker Overseer on 2 and hoping that sticks.
Well, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if VSarius decides to annihilate it or not with, a hand of Gales. I think you still just do. The rule in general, as I've said many times before, is just kill Ricano stuff, especially because your next 2 turns you want to be casting the next phase. You're not going to have another opportunity to use this annihilate for a very long time.
You can maybe ignore Oni Ronin on 1 just because you're pretty likely to draw Dwafara's favor at some point. And that's one of the least likely cards to get equipped. But with Shogun Scepter on Unearthly's hand and Shogun Scepter on Unearthly's deck, just leaving a unit on the board will usually cost you pretty badly. So
that draw there from Unearthly lets him play a threat and hold up Torch, which is going to make this first Gale a little sad. Sarius thinking about playing Instigator there instead, but wisely changes his mind.
Rough. Unearthly actually gets to have his Tinker Overseer value, where he gets the 3/3 Overseer off of the sword, and then also gets a Warcry.
This is a beating. Another Torch is exactly like Unearthly might not know that's exactly what he wanted, but he probably does, and line up really, really nicely against what VSarius.
Yeah, Torches line up against most of VSarius' units very, very well, with the exception of the Borderlands Waykeeper. Here he gets to basically point the Torch at face, get a point of extra overwhelm damage on the Instigator. Torch versus Instigator is one of the reasons why Instigator is not a very good control card and is really only suited to the aggro metas. He's
debating using the sword here, I think, because he knows his opponent could potentially have more Varus favors in deck or something, and he can just use the sword here and save the Torch. There's like an aggressive line and a more conservative line, essentially. Like the aggressive line is use Torch on the unit, where you could instead just use the sword on the unit and just play your Valkyrie here. But because he has Protect, it means he can actually protect his sword from a ping effect if he really wanted to anyways. So
yep, he'll take a little bit more damage from the Midnight Gale because he won't be torching that, but he gets extra war cries as a result, and bigger units is definitely the thing that Unearthly's looking for.
All right, well, VSarius at least gets to play 2 units here. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty good setup for him.
Yeah, depending on what he draws here, he could get back in this game. Fire Source unlocking the Shogun Scepter is really nice for Unearthly. Now you can kill the Gale, get down Scepter, and hold up Protect.
That's pretty rough. There was always the hope that Instigator would allow VSarius to just pick up a free point on that sort of Icaria, but at this point, there's so many Warcries built up on top of Unearthly's deck. His next card's going to be big, and he's already got a good board, and his hand's full of gas.
That's amazing. So he gets to play Amulet, swing, and then if Unearthly either tries to torch it or whatever in response, he still gets to annihilate and get the 5/5. Saw no pause after that attack, so he knows the way's clear for annihilate, but opts to not. Or no, there was a pause. Yeah, protect is still up.
The tech here, of course, folks, is Beast Colors Amulet plus Instigator. If anything dies, Instigator deals damage to the opponent and gets him a Beast. So Unearthly couldn't chump block there. He had to give him the Beast.
So, of course, Unearthly had the silence and now has 2 lethal flyers in play. And VSarius needs a Black Sky Harbinger out of the sideboard to stabilize here. And Sabotage is not that.
Yeah, looks like it's probably going to be game.
So we're tied up.
Unearthly ties it up, and we're going into game 3. Should be exciting times. We'll see if either player wants to make more variations to their sideboard. Unearthly's probably pretty happy with what he's brought out there. It certainly served him very well and didn't have any major weaknesses. So we might be seeing some different things from VSarius. I am seeing one of those Waykeepers going down in exchange for an Annihilate.
Yeah, like I was saying before, even though your opponent's bringing in protects and your spot removal gets a little weaker in that regard, it's still, I think, better than just playing a 1/3. It doesn't, especially now that I saw that my opponent brought in sort of Icarias, that makes a 1/3 even less appealing than it already was. Like, that card just doesn't do anything against a sort of Icaria either. So I would have looked to just take out all of my...
Yeah, he kept 2 of them, which we'll see if they are of any use to him, but he threw the hand with Whispering Winds for probably similar reasons, so it's curious to see if that's going to be helpful.
Well, I think that hand didn't have great power with this one, too, and he's got to decide if he wants to get out an Instigator or a Waykeeper or whatever, and I think the thought on going Waykeeper here is, well, my opponent has 1 fire open, I've got a Sabotage, maybe I draw an undepleted power and I can Sabo plus Instigator.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty reasonable play. Torch could at least get thrown at the face to pop the Aegis there, but at this point, Instigator definitely seems like a good play.
Yep. And now Unearthly's got the Protect, the Torch, units.
No gut check from VSarius there. He could have attacked into the Overseer and threatened Vara's Beaver before playing Instigator, but a free damage missed, I think. Yeah,
I could agree. Those little things may not seem like much on the surface, but they add up in a game where you're both trying to be. I also think it's pretty interesting that the Cabal Countess came in this matchup. I guess it's just to help deal with a sword or whatever, but it's...
Yeah, Cabal Countess can be pretty strong against most things. Like, it is extra removal early, and like, again, it is the goal is to kill Rakanda's dudes. But it's also just pretty effective against those sort of Icarias and can be a good way to push damage back on a deck that's really trying to push at you. I don't disapprove of it. I do think that VSarius is probably in a lot of trouble here with the current setup that he's got.
Yeah, this is a tough spot for VSarius. At least he's got, some nice units out here, but Unearthly's wonderful hand here gets to hold up Protect for a while. But Hammer of Might's not exactly what Unearthly wanted to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that smart, conservative play from Unearthly. You'll notice he held onto the Torch there and waited to see if there was a bigger threat. And as a result, he got an extra point of damage off of the Instigator just by reversing the damage that the Instigator could do.
Yeah, it's a little odd that VSarius played Did he play the Instigator pre-combat? It was
he played it post-combat. Unearthly took the 3 damage and did not torch, and then waited.
Right. All right, so VSarius finally gets his second Shadow Source. Has to use Bear's Favor for not a whole lot of value, but he gets his pick of the litter here. Does he get this Protect out of hand when you have no other removal spells in hand? I don't know. It's one of those things where taking one of the 2 hammers doesn't really matter either.
Yeah, Unearthly has no power to play those hammers, so you have to hope. But it looks like that is going to be a hammer on a unit. VSarius still messing with his influence base and power base. Not going to be able to recover from this, I think. It's going to be pretty hard.
Yeah, it's one of those spots where it makes a lot of sense to not take protect just because you know your opponent's tight on power. The issue being you're taking a plate when you don't know when they're going to be able to play that plate, where it only takes one power for them to be able to play a hammer. So it may have been correct to take hammer. I don't know if ultimately it's going to change the course of this game.
And that Waykeeper did end up being pretty not useful there. Just didn't really help in any way for VSarius. He does get to play Midnight Gale here, and Midnight Gale at least allows him to have a potential crackback where he could get the Midnight Gale lifesteal and then mirror image it to sort of get a little bit more control over the board than he's currently got.
Yep. And now Unearthly's got to decide how aggressive or defensive he gets here. If you're playing hammer, I'm going to swing with it. But the problem with that is if he hammers up one of his flyers and leaves back with 3/3 flyer, he doesn't have protect up. And then so he can't protect his 3/3 flyer. And then potentially VSarius can get lifesteal on Midnight Gale. But while all that's happening, they're not trying to remove your actual threats that are killing him. So,
yeah, if Unearthly leaves backup blocker, I don't think VSarius has outs. If he doesn't leave backup blocker, Midnight Gale plus Mirror Image might buy him a turn, but he's still in a lot of trouble. And those Hammers and Mites are just making sure that Unearthly is going to get very, very good draws. So there's a lot to consider here, but I think that Unearthly has a pretty strong advantage from this point.
Yep, it's just a question of do you just play another 4/6 endurance here and leave a protect, or slam down the hammer and get aggressive. I think there's merits to both lines. I'm in favor of A spacing as much as possible, which means I would go hammer, but I could see the justification for a different
line. It's hard not to push damage. The one thing I like about playing the champion instead of the hammer is that you get to play down more threats, but also you get to spread the war cries on your threats, because you're not really looking for a unit that's super huge against Feln. You're typically looking for a unit that is just bigger than whatever Feln's playing.
Right. This hammer you're not playing because you're getting Warcry 3 in this situation. You're playing it because you get a 5/5 flyer. Good.
Yeah, it looks like we have a setup of just a huge amount of damage there. VSarius does get to mirror his own Midnight Gale if he wants to do that. Other plays include just playing an ambush unit. But yeah, it looks like he's basically just got that one mirror image. That can kill a Valkyrie and gain him 4 health.
And Vanquish off the top will end the game.
Oh, yep, that's definitely a game.
Yeah, if Unearthly didn't have the removal there, he might have had a shot. He would have gained 4 here or something.
All right, well, Unearthly is now 4-0 and looking like he's in pretty good shape to take another run at the finals.
Yep, the meta may change, but Rhino will always have the tools to adapt to it. This one having Oathbook and Tinkers, and Deforge Plate's just a really good card. Sometimes you can just slam it down and your opponent dies.
Yep,
that's a good solution to a lot of problems, it turns out.
It's a time-honored technique. You know that people are playing the slow metas in tournaments, so you bring this solid plate deck every time, and every time it takes a bunch of people by surprise. And then there are just like some interesting sideboard situations where, like, I feel like in particular those Waykeepers, there just wasn't good sideboards against Rhino.
Yeah, it's tough because Rhino can attack you from so many different angles. It's a little hard to read what's the most important cards to bring in or take out. Especially when they get to play something as efficient and powerful as Protect. That makes you sour on some of your removal spells, but it's just a bitter pill you have to swallow sometimes and just accept that you can try and power through it.
Yeah, it looks like we do have a backup match coming up. It's Lv13David versus Bradykin, Elysian mid-range versus the Voda combo deck. I believe we've seen David's broadcast or David's deck before, but we're looking at it from Bradykin's angle on my side.
Yep, we saw David earlier today with the Cerso fun times against Xenon Killers, and now he's going to test Cerso's might against Voda combo, and it looks like Voda combo is comboing. Vodacon may be permafrosted.
The full combo. It's pretty rough. The Mystic Ascendant's drawing cards. The Vodakins are making more draws happen. Bradykin's like main worry here is running out of cards. I think that David's probably in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I don't have Bradykin's list up in front of me just yet, but I imagine he's going to be playing some number.
Well, most of his list is in his hand. He's got Mystic Ascendance.
Well,
He's
the
got
thing is,
Voice
I
of the
don't see
Speaker.
I don't see the most important card, and that's Martial Ironthorn. Once you get into this situation, the play is you get so much power that you can just play Martial Ironthorn and wipe their board.
Bradykin's made a
While you
brave
swing
move.
forward.
He's played down Mystic Ascendant in an effort to finish this game early.
Yeah.
He gets double draws off of Ascendant, and then his power does have Echo, so it's quite possible that he's going to kill himself. He's getting every power he draws him 3 cards.
Yeah, and the other issue is his hand's full. So if he draws a Martial Ironthorn at the wrong time, he will discard it.
I think Bradykin is going into the full death spiral. He needs to silence one of his own units just to stop from dying. It's actually 4 cards that he's drawing off of every single power. I'm surprised that the combo stopped. Because every power will echo and then draw twice for Mystic Ascendance.
Well, once your hand gets full enough, though, you discard the power before the Destiny triggers, or no? I don't even know. It's been so long.
It continues to trigger.
I imagine he's going to get a 30-30 here. That's just vanilla.
Seems like a pretty good deal.
From what I saw out of all those draws, he didn't destroy any of his Martial Ironthorns yet. Of course, he can't even use, like, Seek Power to thin his deck necessarily, but he's got a lot of beaters here.
Sitting pretty at 26.
He's going to take another
continuing to seek. Just set up those Great Parliaments. Maybe get himself...
Yeah, he's going to fill his board with a Great Parliament here. And there's the Ironthorn if he wants it.
I'm not sure he needs to fill his board with the Great Parliament. That might be like an answer to like a Crystallize, but I don't know. I guess it's fine either way. It looks like David's pretty much done.
Yeah, he gets to play Ironthorn and Parliament after all this is said and done. So, and possibly hold up Protect. We'll see.
Yeah, David doesn't have a big answer to this board. It's Shimmer Pack or Crystallize, so he's like Bradykin's only risk is if he's going to like deck himself. I think
Bradykin now wins because he gets to Parliament and then Ironthorn kill one of his units, and he gets to hold up Protect.
He's got one more draw to deck himself. He can still lose.
Well, no, you don't lose until the end of that turn.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So even if he goes to draw and he won't lose until the end of that turn. So even if his opponent has Crystallize here, he would need Crystallize plus another removal spell. Well, even that doesn't do it. He has double Protect. So even with Crystallize, you get to protect your unit that's lethal. You have a bunch of them, and then you just play Martial Ironthorn and wipe your opponent's. So like,
well, the fun combo happening. We got the Permafrost, so probably going to see a Protect there, but it doesn't.
He could or he couldn't. It doesn't matter. Again, the Ironthorn's coming down. You can't counter it. Do what it does.
It looks like we're just going to see Brady can take this match with a Ironthorn into attack. Unless he dirtles more, I think that's pretty much game though. Okay, here's the Destiny Echoes.
Yeah, we're gonna see the rest of Bradykin's deck, and then we'll do some other
double
stuff.
draws. That's quadruple draws. He is gonna draw to 0. So if there was some way for David to just like, there's no answer for David, but
yeah,
I think.
Yep. As long as Bradykin found an Ironthorn and didn't discard it, he was going to be in good shape. And then
Parliaments.
And there we go.
Only draws to 6. There you go. Ironthorn for the win.
Now, Ironthorn comes down, says halt or whatever. Says.
This ends now?
Blue.
No, that's Roland. I can't remember what Ironthorn says. Face justice, something like that.
And hits him for roughly 1 million damage.
Yeah. Tough. Okay, so big old combo on David, and that'll set up Bradykin 2-0. So a 2-0 Voda combo versus Elysian midrange. And
yeah, that's a matchup Voda combo likes to see. A mid-range deck with not a lot of interaction to mess with your combo pieces means Elysian has to have a really fast start to win that game.
Yep. But that is the last of our matches for this round. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back in just a little bit with round 5.